I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my soul, the moment at my wife's family reunion when, amid laughter and clinking glasses, her relatives openly mocked me. In those first 100 heartbeats, every dream I'd nurtured and every sacrifice I'd made for our shared future shattered into a cascade of disbelief and raw, searing humiliation. Their derisive comments, delivered with casual cruelty, cut deeper than any wound I had ever felt. It was as if in that instant my worth was reduced to a punchline, a mere jest for their amusement. I stood there, stunned and isolated, as the echo of their laughter mingled with the bitter taste of betrayal. That moment would forever change the course of my life. For as long as I can recall, I had believed that family was a sanctuary, a place where you could rely on unconditional support and where every individual's contribution was valued. I dedicated years of my life to building a modest yet steady career, pouring long hours and relentless energy into creating a secure future for us. I worked hard, sacrificed weekends, and put every spare moment into my business, all the while dreaming of a life where my efforts would be recognized and respected by those who mattered. My wife, who had once shared in those dreams, seemed to bask in the glow of our mutual ambition. Together, we had envisioned a future of prosperity and unity, where every small victory was celebrated as a shared achievement. I believed that every handshake, every congratulatory word, was a testament to the promise we had built together. Yet, that evening at the family reunion shattered everything I had believed. The reunion was held at a lavish estate, a picturesque setting filled with vibrant chatter, the clink of champagne glasses, and a palpable air of celebration. As relatives mingled in carefully curated clusters, I found myself increasingly sidelined, ignored at conversations, brushed off with dismissive smiles, and worst of all, openly mocked. It wasn't just that they laughed at me, they ridiculed the very essence of who I was. One cousin with a derisive grin quipped in front of everyone, "Looks like Mr. Business Genius is just living off his wife's success. No wonder he's always broke." The words stung like 1,000 needles. In that public spectacle, I felt the weight of every silent sacrifice and every long, lonely night I had endured, only to be treated as if I were nothing more than a joke, a man whose contributions were invisible. The laughter and pointed remarks swirled around me, and I struggled to maintain a semblance of composure. I recalled the countless times I had quietly supported her ambitions, even when I had my own dreams in stasis. I remembered the early mornings spent at the office, the rigorous planning sessions, the sleepless nights poring over spreadsheets and business strategies, all intended to build a better future for both of us. And yet, in that moment, it all seemed to have been in vain. The very people I had trusted to be my extended family now mocked the efforts I had poured into our shared life. I felt a cold wave of betrayal wash over me, mingling with the sting of humiliation as I realized that I had been rendered invisible in the eyes of those I once held dear. I left the gathering in a daze, my mind reeling and my heart pounding with a mixture of sorrow and a nascent determination. On the drive home, every passing street, every familiar landmark, became a reminder of the dreams I had nurtured, and of the painful betrayal that had abruptly undone them. I recalled the many nights I had stayed up working on proposals and business plans, fueled by the belief that my contributions would one day be acknowledged. Instead, here I was, reduced to a bystander in my own life, a ghost among family members who had never truly seen me. The raw, burning anger that welled up inside me was intermingled with a profound sadness, a sorrow for the loss of a shared vision and for the person I had thought she was. When I finally arrived home, I didn't have the strength to face another moment of public disgrace. I locked the door behind me and sank into the worn armchair in my study, the silence punctuated only by the soft hum of the city outside. In that solitude I reached for my journal, a trusted companion in times of despair, and began to write. Every word that flowed onto the pages was an act of catharsis, a desperate attempt to make sense of the cruelty that had been inflicted upon me. I detailed the events of the reunion, the sneers, the whispered comments, and the crushing realization that I had been dismissed as insignificant. With each stroke of the pen, I poured out the grief, anger, and overwhelming sense of betrayal that threatened to consume me. I wrote about the sacrifices I had made, the dreams I had nurtured, and the future I had envisioned, a future that now seemed to crumble beneath the weight of her scorn. I questioned how I had been so blind to the subtle signals, the casual remarks that, in hindsight, should have warned me that something was amiss. I reflected on the times I had suppressed my own ambitions to support her dreams, only to see them tossed aside as if they were nothing. The pages became a canvas on which I painted the raw emotions of that painful day, a record of every tear, every pang of hurt that now fueled a deep-seated resolve. I promised myself that I would not allow this betrayal to define me. I vowed that I would reclaim my self-worth, rebuild my life from the ashes of that humiliating moment, and prove to the world, and to myself, that I was far more than the sum of their mocking words. That night, as I finished writing and closed the journal with trembling hands, I felt a shift deep within me. The overwhelming pain was slowly giving way to a spark of defiant hope. I realized that, in that moment of betrayal, I had been offered a choice to either wallow in despair or to harness the pain and transform it into a catalyst for change. I chose the latter. I resolved to use that bitter experience as a foundation upon which to build a new future, one where I would not only reclaim my dignity but also forge a path of success that would leave no doubt about my worth. In the quiet solitude of that night, as the city slept and the echoes of the family reunion faded into a distant memory, I made a promise to myself. I would rise from this humiliation stronger than ever. I would transform every ounce of pain into the fuel for my resurgence, every tear into a stepping stone toward a future defined solely by my own vision and determination. That was the beginning of a journey of transformation, resilience, and ultimately redemption. And though the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, I was ready to take that first courageous step toward reclaiming my destiny. In the wake of that humiliating reunion, I found myself adrift in a turbulent sea of raw emotion and bitter resolve. The sting of every mocking comment reverberated in my mind as I grappled with the fallout of that fateful night. For days, I moved through life in a daze, waking up each morning with a heavy heart and a mind tormented by memories of sneers and whispered jabs. Yet even as I felt the crushing weight of betrayal, a defiant ember began to glow within me. I realized that the same people who had ridiculed my worth were now, inexplicably, turning to me for business loans. Their sudden change of heart was a surreal twist, one that forced me to confront not only the hypocrisy of their judgments but also my own emerging strength. My first reaction was a cocktail of disbelief and cautious curiosity. How could the very relatives who had mocked my every effort now be asking for financial assistance? I spent sleepless nights poring over old emails and text messages, searching for hints of shifting attitudes in their conversations. It seemed that their initial ridicule had, over time, given way to a desperate pragmatism. Perhaps they realized that while they had the pedigree and the talk of status, they lacked the financial acumen and steady success that I had built with my own sweat and sacrifice. Slowly, I began to see that my journey, marked by the pain of public humiliation, had inadvertently transformed me into a man of substance, a man whose skills and determination were now in high demand. I threw myself into understanding the business dynamics of our family network. I reached out to a few trusted relatives, those who had always maintained a quiet distance from the frivolous chatter of the more ostentatious members of the family, and listened carefully to their concerns. In hushed, often frustrated tones, they confided that the company was facing a liquidity crunch, that projects were stalling and cash flow had become a critical issue. It was as if, in the wake of my public dismissal, a dose of harsh reality had fallen upon them. Now, confronted by their own shortcomings, they were forced to acknowledge that my steady, measured approach to business was the very lifeline they desperately needed. The irony was overwhelming. The people who once tore me down were now scrambling for the guidance I had honed through years of perseverance. Amid this unexpected turn of events, I began meeting with key family members who were now seeking my counsel. Our conversations were tense at first, a mingling of reluctant admiration and lingering resentment. I remember one afternoon, seated at a long mahogany table in a quiet corner of a relative's home, where an uncle hesitantly asked, "How did you manage to build such a successful portfolio? We're struggling to keep our heads above water." His voice trembled between pride and shame. As I answered, I recounted not only the financial strategies I'd employed, careful diversification, meticulous planning, and a relentless focus on long-term stability, but also the personal journey that had taken me from the depths of humiliation to a place of unshakable confidence. I spoke about the sleepless nights and the silent determination that had driven me to invest in myself when I had no one else to rely on. The conversation was raw, unvarnished, and for the first time, I saw some of them beginning to respect the very qualities they had once mocked. This newfound attention from the family ignited a complex mix of emotions in me. On one hand, there was a sense of vindication, a feeling that my worth had finally been recognized by those who had once scorned it. On the other, there was an undercurrent of bitterness that I struggled to suppress. The idea that they were now coming to me, almost begging for my expertise, made me question their motives. Were they seeking genuine advice, or were they simply trying to salvage their own reputations? The ambiguity of their intentions troubled me deeply. I found myself oscillating between a desire to help and an instinct to guard my hard-won success against being exploited once more. During that period, I began to document every meeting and conversation meticulously. Late nights were spent in the solitude of my study, where I would review detailed notes, cross-check financial statements, and map out the potential impact of lending my expertise to the family business. I developed spreadsheets, financial forecasts, and strategic proposals that outlined how their faltering ventures could be revived, and how, by extension, my input could be the key to their salvation. Every figure, every projection, was a testament to the fact that I had transformed the pain of humiliation into actionable insight. I realized that the same qualities that had once made me a target for ridicule, my diligence, my attention to detail, and my unwavering commitment to success, were now the very attributes they desperately needed. In parallel, I continued to invest in my own growth with an intensity that bordered on obsession. I enrolled in advanced business courses, attended leadership seminars, and even sought one-on-one mentorship from industry experts who had navigated similar challenges. These educational endeavors were not just about learning new strategies, they were about reaffirming my identity as a self-made professional, someone who had overcome personal setbacks to achieve remarkable success. Each lecture, every workshop, was a reminder that my journey was an ongoing process of transformation, a series of steps that would eventually lead me to a future defined by my own terms. The interplay between these external business developments and my internal healing was both invigorating and exhausting. There were days when I found solace in quiet reflection, sitting by my window as dusk settled over the city, and marveling at how far I had come. I remembered the harsh words from that fateful reunion, the mocking laughter, the dismissive glances, and I contrasted them with the respectful nods and earnest questions I now received from my relatives. Those moments of introspection were bittersweet. They carried the weight of past wounds but also the promise of a reborn future. I began to understand that the scars of betrayal, while indelible, were also the very marks of my survival, a testament to the strength required to rise above the pain and rebuild one's life from scratch. As I delved deeper into these transformative months, the family's reliance on my expertise became more pronounced. Slowly, more and more relatives approached me, not only for advice but also to request loans to keep their failing ventures afloat. Their requests were laced with a mixture of desperation and reluctant humility, a stark contrast to the derisive laughter that had once echoed through the halls at that reunion. It was as if, in the absence of my support, their own inadequacies had been laid bare, and they now sought a lifeline from the one person they had so casually dismissed. Each loan request was a reminder that my journey of self-reclamation was now intertwined with theirs, albeit in a complicated, bittersweet way. I felt a twinge of responsibility, a desire to help them, even as I guarded the hard-won successes that were now so integral to my identity. I began holding private consultations with a small circle of family members who had expressed their need for financial assistance. In these intimate meetings, conducted in quiet, unassuming coffee shops or in the privacy of my office, I would outline strategies for restructuring their businesses, offer advice on cash flow management, and provide guidance on turning around their operations. The conversations were raw and honest, each one a confession of past failures and a hopeful discussion of a more stable future. I listened to their stories, their regrets, and in many cases, their genuine remorse for having once underestimated me. It was a strange, almost surreal reversal. The very people who had once mocked my achievements were now laying their financial burdens at my feet, desperate for a chance to be rescued by the man they had dismissed as insignificant. This dynamic created a profound internal conflict. Part of me felt vindicated, bolstered by the recognition of my capabilities. But another part wrestled with resentment that I had invested so much of my energy and spirit into our shared dreams, only to be repaid with scorn and now hesitant requests for help. I struggled with the irony that my relentless pursuit of success had not only set me apart but had also become the cornerstone upon which others now depended. Each request, each whispered plea for financial support, was a painful reminder of the betrayal I had endured. Yet, with each interaction I also began to see the potential for transformation, for both them and for myself. I realized that this was an opportunity to not only reclaim my own narrative but also to reshape a part of our family's future that had long been marred by misplaced pride and neglect. Driven by this dual purpose, I started to document a comprehensive plan, a detailed blueprint that mapped out how I would help them while ensuring that my own interests were safeguarded. I spent countless hours at my desk, drafting proposals, creating financial models, and outlining strategies that balanced generosity with prudence. I consulted with trusted advisors and legal experts to ensure that every agreement was clear and that there would be no room for future exploitation. The process was meticulous and demanding, but it served as a powerful affirmation that I was no longer the passive recipient of others' scorn. I was now the architect of my own destiny, with the power to influence outcomes on my own terms. At the same time, I continued to nurture my personal growth with a disciplined routine that balanced work, exercise, and reflective solitude. Mornings became a sacred ritual, a time for long runs through empty streets, when the crisp air and rhythmic pounding of my feet served as both a meditation and a physical testament to my resilience. Afternoons were devoted to my professional endeavors, where every meeting and every new project became an opportunity to build on the legacy I was constructing. Evenings were for quiet reflection, for pouring my thoughts into my journal and letting my creativity flow onto the pages of my blog. Through these practices, I slowly transformed the raw pain of betrayal into a wellspring of strength, a strength that radiated from within and began to define every aspect of my life. As weeks turned into months, I began to see tangible results from my relentless efforts. The loans I extended to family members, though challenging at times, started to stabilize their businesses, and I witnessed small signs of recovery in operations that had once been on the brink of collapse. Simultaneously, my own career continued to flourish. I earned accolades, received promotions, and established myself as a thought leader in my industry, a far cry from the man who had once been ridiculed at that family reunion. Every new achievement, every upward tick in my financial statements, was a resounding affirmation that I had reclaimed my power. The tables had turned in a way that was both unexpected and deeply satisfying. The very people who had once mocked me were now turning to me for guidance and support. But as the dust settled and the initial flurry of business dealings subsided, I was left with a profound, lingering question. Was I helping them out of genuine compassion, or was I simply proving to myself that I was more successful than they had ever imagined? That question haunted me during quiet moments of introspection. I began to realize that the answer wasn't as simple as choosing one over the other. In a strange, almost poetic twist of fate, I had become both a savior to a family that had once dismissed me and a symbol of the strength required to overcome betrayal. I came to understand that every act of assistance I rendered was not merely a transfer of resources, but a reaffirmation of my own worth and an affirmation that my hard-fought success was indisputable. This internal reconciliation was gradual and, at times, tumultuous. I sought counsel from mentors and confidants, discussing not only the logistics of the business loans but also the emotional ramifications of my newfound role. I learned to set clear boundaries, ensuring that while I was willing to help, I would not let my generosity undermine the progress I had made. I established firm contracts, designed repayment schedules, and insisted on transparency in every transaction. Each agreement was a microcosm of my broader journey, a delicate balance between giving and protecting, between empathy and self-respect. Through it all, I documented every step of the process. I kept detailed records of meetings, emails, and phone calls, not only as evidence of my professionalism but as a personal reminder that I was in control of my own destiny. Every day as I reviewed my notes and reflected on the progress I was making, both in restoring my family's trust and in building my own future, I felt a growing sense of empowerment. The pain of that public humiliation, once a sharp, searing wound, was slowly morphing into a badge of honor, a testament to the strength and resilience that defined me. I began to see that my journey was not simply about overcoming a betrayal. It was about transforming that betrayal into the very foundation of my success. I also started to engage more openly with the family members who had once ridiculed me. Over coffee and dinner, in more private and heartfelt settings, we began to have honest conversations about our past, our mistakes, and the possibility of rebuilding trust. While these interactions were fraught with tension and mixed emotions, they also carried the potential for genuine reconciliation. I listened as they expressed regret for the way I had been treated, and I shared my own journey of transformation. These dialogues were raw and challenging, yet they allowed me to assert that my worth was not contingent upon their approval. I made it clear that while I was willing to help stabilize their faltering ventures, my support came with the understanding that I was no longer a subordinate in our shared family narrative. I was a self-made professional, and my value was now firmly established. As the months wore on, the turning point in my personal transformation became unmistakably clear. My professional achievements multiplied, my financial stability grew robustly, and I began to see the reflection of my true self in every accomplishment. The business loans I extended, the strategic partnerships I forged, and the heartfelt conversations that emerged from our reconciliation sessions all served as pieces of a larger puzzle, A puzzle that, when assembled, depicted a future where I was the undeniable architect of my own destiny. I was no longer defined by the mockery of that fateful reunion. Instead, I had carved out a space for myself that was unassailable and radiant with the promise of a bright future. In those final stages of my journey, I started to plan for the next chapter with deliberate care. I mapped out new goals for my career, aiming to expand my influence in the industry, and began to explore innovative projects that aligned with my vision for long-term success. I envisioned a future where my success would not only be measured in accolades and financial gains but in the positive impact I could have on those around me, on colleagues, on family members, and on a community that had once doubted my worth. Every strategy session, every meticulous plan, was imbued with the belief that I was destined for greatness. A belief that no amount of ridicule or betrayal could ever erase. Through these trials, I learned that true strength lies in the ability to transform pain into progress. The journey from the depths of humiliation to the heights of self-reclamation was not linear. It was a winding, tumultuous path marked by both setbacks and breakthroughs. Yet each moment, each grueling day, and each quiet night of reflection reinforced the truth that my value was intrinsic and unassailable. I had built a legacy not from the accolades that others had tried to steal, but from the unwavering belief in my own potential. A legacy that I continued to forge with every decision, every risk, and every triumph. As I now stand at the threshold of a future that I have painstakingly constructed, I look back on those turbulent months with a mixture of bittersweet nostalgia and fierce pride. The family members who once mocked me are now relying on me for their financial stability, and while that dynamic is fraught with its own complexities, it is also a testament to the unexpected ways in which life can vindicate those who refuse to be defined by the failures of others. I have not only reclaimed my self-worth but have also emerged as a beacon of resilience. A living, breathing example that true success is born from the courage to rise, rebuild, and redefine your own destiny. That morning, as I sat in my home office with the soft light of dawn filtering through the curtains, I realized that my life had finally come full circle. Every moment of pain from that family reunion, the stinging mockery, the whispered jibes, the cold dismissal of my worth, had culminated in this very instant. Today, I wasn't just the quiet, hard-working man who had once been ridiculed. I was a respected business leader whose advice and expertise had become indispensable. The same relatives who had once sneered at my efforts were now knocking on my door, seeking business loans and financial guidance. Their sudden reversal was as shocking as it was ironic, and as I reflected on it, a powerful sense of vindication and quiet triumph washed over me. Over the months that followed that fateful reunion, I embarked on a relentless journey of transformation. A journey that demanded I confront my deepest insecurities and rise above every petty slight. I began by channeling my heartbreak into action. I meticulously gathered evidence of my contributions, not to tear anyone down, but to assert the truth, that my innovative ideas and countless hours of hard work had been the driving force behind our shared successes. I compiled detailed records, crafted comprehensive reports, and with the support of like-minded colleagues, built a compelling case that could no longer be ignored. Every spreadsheet, every project timeline, every piece of feedback from clients was proof that my value had always been there, hidden behind the veil of betrayal. I recall the day I first received an unexpected call from one of my cousins, a relative who had once been among those who mocked me. His voice was low and hesitant, but it carried a weight of genuine concern. "I don't know what happened," he confessed, "but things are falling apart. The business is in trouble and we're scrambling for funds. We need your help." That single conversation was like a spark lighting a fuse. It forced me to re-examine the entire network of our family's enterprises. I realized that while they had once treated me as insignificant, they now recognized, whether out of necessity or regret, that I possessed the acumen to turn things around. It was a bittersweet moment. The very people who had once undermined me were now coming to me, seeking solutions for their financial woes. Emboldened by the clarity of my own journey, I began meeting with family members one-on-one. In those private, often tense discussions, I listened to their confessions of mismanagement and their desperate pleas for guidance. Some admitted that they had once been too proud to accept that my ideas were the foundation of our success. Others, more quietly, expressed regret for their dismissive attitudes. Each conversation was a mix of remorse, humility, and the stark realization that business, like life, was built on collaboration, and that my vision was worth more than any petty family pride. I felt both compassion and resolve. I knew that while I could extend a helping hand, I would do so on my own terms, with clear boundaries and an unwavering commitment to fairness. I dedicated long hours to rebuilding not only my own business empire but also to stabilizing the faltering ventures of my family. I organized meetings with financial advisors, restructured the mismanaged funds, and proposed innovative strategies to revive struggling projects. Every step of this process was a delicate balance between generosity and self-preservation. I was determined to help, but I refused to let my hard-won success be taken advantage of again. I set up formal agreements with clear repayment schedules and strict terms, ensuring that any assistance I provided was a partnership built on respect and transparency. The process was grueling and fraught with emotional tension, but with each resolved issue, I felt my sense of purpose solidify. I was reclaiming my worth on my own terms, and slowly the tables began to turn. As I immersed myself in these efforts, I also continued to nurture my own growth. I enrolled in advanced leadership courses and sought out mentors who had weathered similar storms. Their insights, hard-earned through their own battles with betrayal and failure, resonated deeply with me. They taught me that true leadership wasn't about clinging to past grievances, it was about transforming adversity into a roadmap for success. With every lesson learned, I began to see my journey not as a series of unfortunate events, but as a crucible that had forged within me an unbreakable resolve. I learned to channel my anger into innovation, my sorrow into strategic thinking, and my isolation into a drive to connect with others on a deeper, more authentic level. My personal life, once marred by the sting of public humiliation, began to flourish in unexpected ways. I reconnected with old friends and forged new bonds with people who admired the authenticity of my journey. We met for long dinners and casual get-togethers where, over heartfelt conversations, we shared our experiences of overcoming setbacks and reclaiming our destinies. These interactions provided not only solace but also a sense of validation, that my pain was not in vain and that my ability to rise above adversity was an inspiration. I began to see that true family and friendship are not determined by the opinions of those who once belittled you, but by the unwavering support of those who stand by you through every storm. In parallel, I returned to my creative pursuits with a fervor that had long been dormant. I wrote extensively about my experiences, channeling every raw emotion into essays that were both brutally honest and ultimately uplifting. My words, once a private testament to my struggle, began to take on a life of their own when I started sharing them on a blog. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from readers who had experienced their own betrayals and found hope in my story. Their encouragement transformed my solitary journey into a shared narrative of resilience and triumph. I realized that by exposing the raw, unfiltered truth of my experience, I could help others reclaim their own sense of worth and ignite in them the courage to rebuild their lives. Every day, I structured my time meticulously, balancing long hours at work with equally intense periods of self-reflection and creative expression. Mornings became a ritual of solitude, a time for early runs through the quiet, awakening streets, where the rhythm of my footsteps was a meditation and a reminder that every day was a new beginning. Afternoons were dedicated to high-stakes meetings and strategic sessions that pushed the limits of my professional abilities. Evenings were for introspection, where I would retreat to my study, sip a cup of strong coffee, and write down my thoughts until the night grew deep. This disciplined routine not only brought clarity to my mind but also allowed me to measure my progress, both as a professional and as an individual reclaiming his identity. As the months turned into a full year, the transformation was undeniable. My professional achievements became a living testament to my resilience. Each successful project, each new client, and every upward tick in my financial reports was a clear declaration that I had reclaimed my worth. I had not only built my own empire but had also, in the process, become the unexpected savior for a family that had once dismissed me as insignificant. The irony was as bitter as it was satisfying. Those who had once mocked me were now turning to me for guidance and support, their financial woes a testament to the cost of their hubris. Every loan I granted, every strategic piece of advice I offered, was a quiet reminder that my success was built on hard work, integrity, and an unyielding belief in my own potential. In the midst of this transformation, I found myself increasingly comfortable in the role I had carved out for myself. A role that was as much about personal redemption as it was about professional achievement. I began to see that my journey was not defined by the cruelty of my past, but by the strength it had taken to overcome it. I reflected on those early days of seething anger and profound isolation, and I marveled at how each painful memory had become a stepping stone toward a future that was bright with possibility. The wounds of betrayal, once raw and all-consuming, had slowly healed into scars that now marked the places where I had grown, where I had fought, and where I had ultimately triumphed. By the time I stood at the threshold of my new beginning, ready to expand my business, invest in new ventures, and continue forging a legacy defined by my own terms, I had transformed the deepest wounds of my past into the driving force behind my success. I had learned that true power lies in the ability to turn adversity into opportunity, to let every setback fuel an even greater comeback. I had become a leader not only in my industry but in my own life, someone who had faced betrayal with unwavering resolve and emerged stronger for it. My identity was no longer tethered to the shallow judgments of others but was built on a foundation of self-respect, perseverance, and the courage to pursue my dreams relentlessly. In the final stretch of that long, arduous journey, I began to plan for a future that was as ambitious as it was inspiring. I mapped out detailed strategies for expanding my business into new markets, diversifying my investments, and creating opportunities for innovation that would cement my place as a visionary in my field. I envisioned projects that would not only generate substantial financial returns but also contribute positively to the community, a legacy that would help others overcome their own challenges and reclaim their dignity. Every meeting with potential partners, every strategic discussion, was imbued with the sense that I was building something far greater than just a career. It was a movement, a testament to the transformative power of resilience. I also dedicated time to mentoring emerging talents, sharing my journey with young professionals who had experienced their own setbacks. In one heartfelt conversation during a mentorship session, a young entrepreneur confessed that my story had given him the courage to pursue his own ideas, no matter how many obstacles he faced. That moment crystallized for me the understanding that my transformation was not just about personal success, it was about inspiring change in others. My journey had become a beacon, a proof that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit can rise, rebuild, and flourish. Now, as I stand at the cusp of a future that I have meticulously built from the remnants of betrayal, I reflect on the path that led me here with a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. Every challenge I encountered, every sleepless night spent questioning my worth, has contributed to the man I am today, a man defined by his own accomplishments and unwavering determination. The memories of past humiliation no longer haunt me. Instead, they serve as a powerful reminder of the strength that emerges when you refuse to be broken by life's hardships. I have reclaimed my destiny, and my journey is a testament to the transformative power of resilience, perseverance, and self-belief. As I look out over the city from the balcony of my office, a vista filled with endless opportunities, I know that my future is mine to shape. The betrayal that once sought to diminish my light has become the fuel for my ascent. I am now more than just a businessman. I am a leader, a mentor, and an inspiration to those who have faced similar challenges. Every achievement, every new venture, every bold step I take is a declaration that I am in control of my destiny. I have turned pain into power, despair into determination, and every bitter memory into a stepping stone toward a legacy that will endure. In that final reflective moment before the day unfolds, I feel an overwhelming surge of hope and excitement. I have transformed the cruelty of the past into the foundation for an extraordinary future. One where my success not only defines me but also paves the way for others to rise above their own struggles. My journey, filled with obstacles and hard-won victories, has taught me that true success is measured not by the opinions of those who once doubted you, but by the courage to pursue your dreams despite every setback. With an unshakable resolve and a heart brimming with gratitude, I step confidently into tomorrow, ready to build, innovate, and inspire, one courageous, determined step at a time.